Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Line-Miller, your host. I want to thank our sponsor, Farm to Plate. They are creating tomorrow's food business ecosystem today. Our guest today knows all about the supply chain in the food industry. Please welcome Lucy Angarita. She is with us from GS1 US. Welcome to the podcast, Lucy.
Thank you, Pam, for the opportunity of being here.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today, but if you could level set with us a little bit about who GS1 US is and what you do there before we jump into our detailed conversation.
GS1, actually, we're known for the barcode. I mean, we have 10 billion barcodes scanned every day across the globe. So yes, we are known for that. But really what we do is we bring companies together to talk about how to bring their businesses forward in their supply chain, how to find common solutions that helps everybody. And the foundation of it all is a common language. So basically, we have GS1 standards that are global standards, the most widely adopted across the globe. And yeah, what we do is just lay that foundation so system can talk to system without a lot of translation, without a lot of mapping.
And I should have said you don't just work in the food industry, but of course today, topically, we are going to be focused on the food industry because we have some regulations that are coming up and a lot of changes that are going on within the supply chain of the food industry where GS1 US is playing a large role.
Yes, Pam, actually, FSMA 204 is that regulation that is keeping people up at night a little bit. It came into effect January of 2023. And it compliance is expected for January of 2026.
Yeah, which
And
is
it is
really quick for people.
it is coming quick. It's been a year and a half, and it really is bringing alignment in the food industry, understanding what needs to be done and understanding best practice.
Great. Well, and for those that may not be familiar with FSMA, that's the Food Safety Modernization Act. And so this is a regulation within that act that is really helping with tracking and traceability within the food supply chain, right, Lucy?
Exactly. So basically, everybody that manufactures, processes, holds, or packs food on a high risk list that the FDA has put out there, such as, for example, leafy greens, shell eggs, nut butters. So there's a whole list, and also products made with these ingredients, if they haven't undergone a kill step, which means a step that kills, the bacteria, the risky part of the bacteria, that is included. So anybody in the food industry that handles these products, and this includes a big amount of companies.
It is. And how do you identify who some of these companies are in
Well,
the
actually, we work, as I mentioned, with all supply chain stakeholders. For the food industry, we have manufacturers, distributors, solution providers, associations, retailers, operators coming together, big and small, to talk about, okay, well, even since the proposed rule in 2020 was published for people to comment on, our members were like, how do we figure this out? It's so much information. It's 597 pages, the rule. They needed to understand, okay, these are our business realities. This is, what the regulation is. How do we understand what to do? This is how we started the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And so how do they even get started? How do they start to think about this?
Well, one of the things that as we started the conversation and looking at, okay, these are the products that are impacted, these are the supply chain processes that are impacted, we realized it's a lot, right? It's a lot, and we wanted to focus on certain representative examples. But the main theme came out quickly, which is regardless of the size of your company, regardless of the technology you're using, it really boils down to using a common language, because this is a type of regulation that you will not be able to do on your own within your own four walls. You have to communicate with others. You have to make sure you're interoperable, meaning the data you capture and you share with others is understood by the whole supply chain.
Boy, I think that's really a key point, Lucy, is that so that we can have connectivity and using that common language so that everyone is speaking the same language. Now, there are some key things that need to be passed along, which are outlined in the rule, which each individual entity can figure out. But like, there's some key elements in there, and you're simply giving them a format to put that in, right?
Exactly. We're not addressing any specific technology, even though we do work with our members to see how their current technologies play and how they can be leveraged. But what we really focus on is laying out the foundation of identify, capture, and share.
Okay.
Identify means, you are identifying your products and your locations and even logistics units like pallets, right? Moving along your supply chain. So we do that through unique identifiers. The GTIN, which is a global trade item number for products, GLNs, global location numbers for locations. And we also are using a lot of the pallet identifiers, which is the serial shipping container codes or SSCCs.
Okay.
That gives us one way of referring to all products and all locations throughout the supply chain, which really helps with this regulation. You did touch on that, Pam. I mean, they are requiring, for example, a traceability log code to be kept uh, as the product moves along the supply chain, unless the product is, for example, initially packed or transformed, or for seafood, it's a first land-based receiver. So everybody needs to keep this information going and pass it on, make sure it's accurate. This is the type of regulation that you have to work with your trading partners and make sure you have accurate data being passed on to you.
Exactly. So are you seeing, some of your membership and some of the companies that need to align and are aligning, are they coming together on some of the standardization and having some agreement here?
Yes, I would actually tell you, like you mentioned, the Food Safety Modernization Act is not new. That has been in place since 2011, and it required companies to keep track of the food they shipped out and the food they received. But now with this more granular requirements, such as the traceability law code, I've never really, to be honest, I've been doing traceability for more than 12 years in my previous life as well. And I've never seen such alignment in the food industry where, the leading companies are coming together. They're saying, okay, we need to comply by 2026, but this is the way that we can accomplish this in an accurate manner that we can, if you're not automating today, we can do it in the future. But this is how we're laying it out. And we actually worked with them on tools and resources to show exactly how the standards could be leveraged. It's nothing new. Even the produce traceability initiative started with, this food traceability since 2007.
Oh, wow.
And this is, what the industry is coming together. It's not required by the rule. The rule just requires a sortable spreadsheet. But if you think about all those connection points and the different paths that a product can take and how you need to trace that log code and where it was manufactured or packed, I mean, you think about all these associations you need to make. Doing that in Excel is pretty complicated.
As a matter of fact, Lucy, I believe you have a visualization of what the journey of the product might look like so that we can actually visualize what you're talking about and how these identifiers can work.
Absolutely. I think it is good. It's always good to paint a picture, right? And just starting with maybe taking the audience 4 years ago, right? I mean, in food, I think most companies were focused on, okay, I'm shipping product X from point A to point B. And that was it, right? As far as regulatory concerns go, as far as supply chain visibility in general. Then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, well, 5 years ago maybe, COVID hit, and the consumer, maybe they weren't too used to talking about supply chain. And all of a sudden, they started running out of toilet paper. So they got a lot more demanding. They wanted to know where their product came from. They wanted to understand if, their brands were going to have what they needed when they needed it. So it's regulatory compliance, but it's also about, am I reducing waste? Am I giving enough information to my consumer? And now to add the regulatory piece, can I have all this data of the product within 24 hours? Right. So it's getting more and more challenging to keep up. And just to give you an example of what I just described, before it was product going from a plant to a distribution center to a retailer or restaurant. But with the regulation itself and all the supply chain visibility needs that companies have today, it looks something like a web, right? And this is just a snapshot of one point in time in the supply chain where the product needs to be not just the whole, where am I getting this product from? Where am I shipping it to? But also where it was manufactured. I need to keep that information of the plant where this case of product or trade item was initially packed. And this includes, full address of that plant, city, state, everything around that. So imagine keeping what you're seeing here, all these little arrows manually and doing mapping for all of this. This is where unique identification of the products, which are the global trade item numbers, of the locations, which are the global location numbers, and the logistics units, serial shipping container codes, all become so useful because you can keep track of all of that.
Right. And for those of you that are just listening to us, you may want to watch us on YouTube because Lucy has a visual just tracking that entire journey of the product with the arrows going from, where the supplier plant was to possibly to storage, being put on pallets, going to a distribution center, maybe being put into cases, getting to a retailer or another operator. It's just a web of locations, and different products might go to different areas. So this is where digitization in the food supply chain is really going to be helpful. And GS1's role in helping to standardize that is just critical. I know other industries you work with have done a lot more already.
Actually, that's a really good point, Pam. We have been working with healthcare because healthcare actually has been implementing traceability for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And we have really good learnings from them. One of the things they've highlighted is get your master data clean to begin with. Get all your product information, all your location information centralized, that all, your network can access it, that there's governance around it. Because if not, all the traceability data is going to have exponential errors. So we at GS1 US are providing tools for that. For years, for example, the food industry has been using the Global Data Synchronization Network, better known as GDSN. And this is just a way of sharing product information in a standard way that everybody can recognize, and we don't have to, try and decrypt what you mean, right, about the product. It's all there. And then there's also a lot of attention going into GS1 US Data Hub for location information. It's also a data. It's a database really that can where companies can enter all their location information and give access to whoever they want, including the FDA, who has actually mentioned you can give them an identifier, such as a global location number, and then point to a system that they can access quickly at no cost. And this is what GS1 Data Hub location can do.
Absolutely, because complying with that part of the rule that requires accessibility within 24 hours for this data, that's a high bar out there for a lot of companies that are in the food industry. So to think about that can seem like a daunting task. However, there's help out here, right? We're here to say there's help. You're not alone.
You're not alone. And actually, the work that we have done since this FSMA 204 team of industry collaborators started, which was really November 2021, we have created tools to outline, okay, here's all the data that FDA is requiring for FSMA 204. That can get a little bit overwhelming. It's a lot of data for each of the events in the supply chain that they've actually outlined. But when you bucket these into three categories, companies start realizing, oh, here's my product information. I do share that today. I share these many attributes today. Then there's my location information. Okay, we need to capture information from each of the plants. That's something new, right? But we still have, for example, our headquarters identified. And then there's the event and the transactional data, which is now what companies are focusing on, for example, with languages such as EPCIS, Electronic Product Code Information Services.
Okay.
And it sounds very fancy, but really what it is, it's a language. It's just a way to exchange information that the FDA is requiring, for example, for cooling, for harvesting, for initial packing. And it's just describing the what, the who, the how, the where, and when of that event in a standardized way. So EPCIS has been a big focus. Healthcare has used it, and now the food industry is demystifying it. Let's just put it that way.
Well, excellent. I think that EPCIS, that common language that you were talking about, that's the critical piece so that the connectivity can be seamless and we can pass the data along and everyone understands what that is. And I think that the fear from food companies of sharing competitive information or other information that they don't want to share, that's not what's being asked of them. As you said, the three buckets of identifiers and things that need to be shared aren't revealing any competitive information or pricing information or specifics like that, that I think some people that just take a first glance at the rule might be fearful of.
You have an excellent point there, Pam, because yes, companies are fearful of the data they need to share. And actually, the FDA has been very specific on the events where they just need a company to capture information and which events they need companies to share downstream. So one of those is the shipping event, right? That is what they've outlined. You know, if you're going from this step A to step B, you need to send the shipping information to your trading partner. And with that being said, there is something we're leveraging with our industry members that has been used for over 30 years in food, and it's the Advanced Ship Notice or ASNs.
Okay.
There's companies that have already sent out their supplier letters with those specific fields that need to be added to an ASN, like the lot code, like the quantity, how many cases of each product GTIN, global trade item number, and how many log codes are included in a pallet. All of that can be done in the typical ASN, regardless of the version you're in. You know, if you use the oldest or the newest version, it doesn't matter. You can add those fields. We have guidance that's specific to how to share that shipping information with exactly what the FDA is requiring.
Great. And I know as a part of the show notes, I think we're leaving some resources for our viewers and listeners that they can access some of the GS1 US resources to get more details about those things. So correct?
Yes, we have resources for everybody, beginners, intermediate, advanced level in both the rule and GS1 standards.
Perfect.
So you can go to GS1 US / food safety
Yeah.
and or look at the resources shared here, and
Yeah.
there's all the tools there.
Great. We will definitely do that because the ASNs, and I didn't know that you can just add on there and that people are already doing that. It's not a reactive.
Nothing new.
Yeah, it's not new. I know we feel like all of this is new. What else do we need to talk about this? There's so many things here. Right.
So we have GTINs, GLNs, and SSCCs, which is the identification. Then we have the master data tools we just talked about. We have the capture piece that we haven't addressed, which is pretty much barcodes and RFID tags. So there's different types of barcodes that have been used in food for years. For example, one called the GS1 128 barcode. So it doesn't just include the GTIN, which is that number that identifies the product. It also includes the lot code, for example. You can also include a date in there. The Produce Traceability Initiative has used it for many years. The seafood industry has used it for many years. So this is something that we've provided guidance. If you're using a GS1 128 barcode, best practice, even though the rule does not require labeling or barcodes, best practice is as the product moves to be able to scan that, right? And capture the GTIN, the date, and the lot. The date is really not for that regulatory mandate, but it's for inventory management. It's for improved, end-to-end supply chain visibility, which brings so many benefits, Pam, including better stock rotation, understanding your product life cycle for, product freshness management, reducing waste in your system, being more sustainable. I mean, it's all tied together, and these three fields really give that visibility.
Yeah,
In
that's a
food, there's
huge benefit that we don't want to go without. I'm glad you detailed that out because those are some of the biggest issues in the food industry,
yeah.
and a hit to profitability when you have spoilage, or you're not getting your inventory right, or you lose product in the supply chain through pilferage or other means, and you don't know where it is or what happened to it.
Absolutely. And there's also a lot of interest in a new type of barcode in food. It has not been new. I mean, everybody has kind of QR code, right? In a menu. Um, but there's also that same square. It's called a GS1 data matrix. And that square actually allows 2000 plus characters, which means you can include the GTIN, you can include the date, you can include the lot, and also that manufacturing plant we were talking about, or where the product is initially packed, or manufactured. So there's more data that can be included, and it has error correction. So you could scan it, and it's even if it's scratched, or it's damaged, you can still scan it across the supply chain. And the
Oh,
big advantage of the GS1 data matrix is that it has the same language as a GS1 128 barcode.
okay. So it's built on established technology, so to speak. It's already accepted
Yes,
from that,
for
and
supply chain.
for supply chain. That's exciting. That
It
and that's
is.
a lot of information. That's a lot of information. 2,000 characters is a lot of information. I know we're not using
It is.
that right now.
And actually, the best practice would be do not include everything there, because the more information you include, the less error correction you have and the bigger it gets. But still, best practice, the G10 date lot and then that GLN would bring so much benefit. And there's catch weight for some products that people also are looking into adding. And then another data carrier that we haven't discussed in the capture realm is RFID. And it's something we're all familiar with in apparel and general merchandise. But for food now, we were always thinking, well, the margins are smaller in food and, RFID. But actually, the technology has improved so much. There's many companies that are piloting, and some are actually already rolling out RFID programs for the
Wow.
food
Okay.
piece.
Okay. And the benefit of that would be that real-time tracking, right?
Exactly. And no line of sight. So basically, you don't have to have somebody probably scanning, but you have antennas in warehouses where the case just goes and it just captures that information. So you reduce a lot of the labor, you increase accuracy, um, with RFID. And then also there's, for example, a case study out there you might want to take a look at, which is Golden State Foods GS1 US case study. They actually proved out, they piloted RFID, they proved out the benefits, not just for them, but for the whole supply chain on inventory management and all the other things I just talked about.
That's a lot. That's exciting though. I mean, I think it's not just I don't want to use the word punitive, but the regulations are not just being put in place for the sake of putting regulations in place. They're being put in place for all these different benefits that are going to be gleaned by the industry and as well as the consumer. I, for one, would love to know the journey of my product. And if something was organic and came from a certain country, I want to know that that's actually the product that I'm ending up with, and it's not just marketing on the back end. So this
Yeah.
really gives the proof all along the way for me to know that.
Absolutely, Pam. And the challenging piece of that is it's hard. People typically don't have in their companies a lot of training on how to capture the ROI before those investments are made. So everybody's focused on, this is what it's going to cost me, but they don't see down the line all the cost avoidance that will be there. And we can share some case studies with you as well in our website. It's there,
Mhm.
where a company actually saved after implementing the standards for traceability and food safety. they actually automated their inventory management system. So ordering became automated, and they quantified $72 million a year in
Yeah.
cost avoidance, which is hard to measure. When you're thinking about, oh my God, this is all I'm going to have to invest right now, it's hard to measure down the line what you can do when you have the standards.
Well, because this refines a lot of other processes that are
Yes.
happening, right? And just streamlines everything, and the accountability is there, and the traceability is there, and you're able to track it all the way through. Not only that, I remember years ago, and they used to say, there's a recall on, I hate to, throw lettuce under the bus, but it always seemed like the romaine lettuce,
The
which I
romaine.
love. And so everybody who bought romaine lettuce, they couldn't tell you anything about it. But now with this, they will know exactly where that lettuce came from, where it was sold, and be more specific. And we are just going to eliminate a lot of food waste that didn't need to be thrown out because it wasn't really a problem with the recall. We can.
Yes. Targeted recalls are a big focus also for the FDA, but also for brands. Your brand reputation is at stake. You are protecting your customers. So being able to take that product out of your system as soon as possible is huge. I mean, every second that passes, the risk grows exponentially when that product is out there. So it's not the same going to all your restaurants or all your stores and saying, hey, find, I don't know, lettuce. Let's just keep messing with lettuce, right?
More
But
lettuce.
but it's, yeah, this is how we started eating kale. I mean, I
I
still
know.
like it,
Maybe.
but it's really about, knowing, oh, these 5 restaurants versus these 500 received this lot code, and we can reach out to them and take it out of the system. So it is about customer protection. It is about brand reputation, which you can't quantify. You can put a dollar value in that.
No, not at all. And the protection of the consumer as well as the brand.
Yes.
Those are two great points there. Well, Lucy, we have covered so many great things today, but is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience before we go?
Yes, we're very excited because today, actually, 50 years ago, on June 26, 1974, the first barcode was scanned. It was a pack of Wrigley's chewing gum. And if
Okay.
we think about that, 50 years ago, cashiers used to type the product number so they can charge you. You imagine those lines people had to go through when they went grocery shopping?
Oh
And
my,
then, the barcode changed the whole landscape in the retail industry. So we're excited about how it's evolving. And now going, for example, to the two-dimensional codes we're talking about. So there's a QR code with GS1 digital link, also meant to be scanned at POS, but also consumers can take their phones and point to it and see ingredients, see where it came from, see traceability information, anything that the brands want to share. So we're very excited about that. It's meant to be scanned at all point of sale systems by 2027. So that's the QR code with digital link with GS1 digital link. And then we also have, other data carriers, as I mentioned, that industry is exploring, such as RFID.
well, Lucy, we certainly are so happy to celebrate your Scanniversary with you. And thank you for being with us today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And if you want more information on the Scanniversary, you can go to gs1us.org/50, and you'll see a lot more cool facts about our Scanniversary.
Perfect. And if you, our listeners and viewers, would like to hear and watch more interviews like we've had with Lucy today, which we had a lot of fun and we talked about a lot of really important information, let us know, drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe. Until next week, I'm Pam Linemiller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.